As we gather this morning to bless the memory of those who have served with us with honor and commitment, and most recently remembering our fallen brother from the Tacoma Police Department, Officer Gutierrez, we pause in silence, giving thanks and reflecting on how each of their lives continue to shape even our lives today. Let me introduce Councilman Reagan Dunn.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you. We gather here today with heavy hearts. This memorial is a result of great partnership with the King County Sheriff's Office. Shortly after John Urquhart was elected, we began the planning for this memorial commemorating 160 years of service. And we had no way of knowing that today, while honoring the sacrifice of fallen King County officers, we'd be joining the rest of Washington State in mourning the fallen Tacoma police officer killed on Wednesday night. And working closely with the Sheriff's Office, I was proud to sponsor and approve this memorial. And today we'll have the chance to see the vision of the Sheriff's Office honoring the sacrifice of all 16 deputies killed in the line of duty here in King County since 1954. 10 years ago today, we lost Deputy Steve Cox. He was a friend and a heck of a great community leader. I was there for his funeral and now here to ensure his memory is honored, and his family is here today as well. This week, also 7 years ago, this week was the anniversary of the death of the 4 Lakewood police officers who were killed in the line of duty. And I had the great honor of running the Remember Lakewood campaign, and that effort amended the Washington State Constitution to allow judges to deny bail to violent offenders facing life in prison. So that amendment works to prevent reoffenders and discourages violence against law enforcement officers, a tragedy we have sadly experienced all too frequently throughout the year. It's been a long journey getting to this moment, and there are so many people to thank. I want to thank those who contributed huge amounts of time, effort, and even money to make this happen. Chish Oy and Stephen Shahaglian from Glassworks Incorporated. Are you here? So raise your hands. There you are in the back. Great. Jason Jensen of Oregon Tile and Marble Company. Jason, raise your hand if you're here. Great. Mike Sharila of Ceramic Tile and Marble and Granite. Sam and Joanne Santos of Westerns Graphics Incorporated. Jim Ritter and the entire Seattle Metropolitan Police Museum. And the men and women of King County Trades for the incredible work constructing this memorial and really making it come to life. A special thanks also to our Facilities Management Division who helped make this memorial happen today in this event. And I'd like to thank Tony Wright, the Department Director, for his work as well. Tony, raise your hand, please. Thanks. Robert Renard, the project manager who put in a lot of extra time and energy into making this memorial, to make it look pristine and ready for today, put in many hours. So King County never forgets its fallen. We don't. In gathering today, we honor those who made the ultimate sacrifice while working for the safety of our neighborhoods and communities and our region. And so right now it's my privilege to introduce your elected sheriff, John Urquhart, who has been a great friend to law enforcement and to keeping our county safe. Please join me in welcoming Sheriff Urquhart.
Thank you, Reagan. And frankly, there are just too many elected officials here for me to recognize all of them, because if I did, I would certainly forget one of them. So I'm not going to do that, but thank you for being here. But I do want to recognize 2 former sheriffs who are here. Sue Rahr, you raise your hand, stand up. Former King County Sheriff and current Chief Police, City of Bremerton, Steve Strand. Where are you, Steve? Thank you. Sheriff Reichert, Congressman Reichert, as he doesn't like to be called. Sheriff Reichert couldn't be here today. but he sends his best wishes, and you know he is deeply invested in the history of the Sheriff's Office. Again, thank you, Reagan, for your service on the King County Council over the last 11 years, as well as your partnership to finally make this memorial a reality. I think it's safe to say this would not have happened without your help. When I was elected 4 years ago, I returned to the Sheriff's Office with 5 goals. And I'm not going to bore you with the first 4, but the 5th was this memorial. I thought it was long past time that King County recognized the 16 sheriff's deputies who gave their lives in the line of duty while serving and protecting the citizens of King County. And I was determined to have a memorial in a place where deputies and the public alike could see and remember those 16 names. It's been a long time coming, but today is that day. Reagan, thank you again for mentioning all those that helped to make this memorial a reality. I also want to thank my Chief of Staff, Chris Behringer, for all his fine work to coordinate, cajole, manage, and to make sure everything got done on time. And thanks also to the committee that was responsible for this. You know who you are. And if you don't know who they are, some of them are Robin Fenton, Mickey Christensen, Tom Goff from Reagan's office, Bren Vanderstoop from Reagan's office, and Leonard Jones from our office. They all had a key role in designing and making sure it happened today. But mainly I want to thank Captain Greg Thomas, sitting over here. Greg worked tirelessly behind the scenes, cutting through the red tape in order to make sure this happened. He truly has the heart of a servant, and not to mention he is our unofficial county sheriff's office historian. I'm here to tell you, without Greg's diligence, hard work, and most of all his dedication to this project, again, we would not be here today. And I got to tell you, many in the sheriff's office, in my offices, they come in early and they work late. In the last 3 weeks, every morning that I came in and every night that I left, there was an FMD worker out there working on this project at literally all hours of the day and night. So Tony, thank you for making that happen. Nevertheless, as excited as I am to see this memorial become a reality, it is bittersweet. Obviously, we mourn the loss of Tacoma officer Jake Gutierrez, who just 2 days ago was shot and killed at a domestic violence call, a call that all of us have gone to many, many, many times. As Reagan said, today we also mark the 10-year anniversary to the day that we lost Deputy Steve Cox. Sheriff's Office has not experienced a line of duty death since, and while in and of itself that's a blessing, it does nothing to dampen the ache that remains for all those who loved him and every other deputy, the love that we had for every other deputy whose name was on that wall. And finally, because this is 2016, so far this year, nationwide, 134 police officers and sheriff's deputies, men and women, have died or been killed on the job. Of those, 63 of those were killed as a result of gunfire, a 64% increase over 2015, and we've still got a month left in this year. In several of those cases, officers were targeted solely for the fact that they put on a uniform, a badge, and a gun just to protect their community each and every day. 14 of the 16 names on our memorial died as a result of homicidal behavior. That's 88%. 2 died as a result of motorcycle accidents. And 2 were killed with their own weapon, hopefully putting to rest the myth that an unarmed suspect is inherently not dangerous. Now, as I read these 16 names and their circumstances, if we have family members here today, please raise your hands. We'd like to acknowledge the fact that you're here, and so we know who you are. The first was Deputy Wesley Cherry, who was killed in 1853. Deputy Cherry was fatally shot while searching for murder suspects on Whidbey Island. And yes, in those days, Whidbey Island was part of King County. His was the first line of death in the new Washington Territory, and it was his first day of service to the King County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Lewis Wyckoff, the only sheriff of King County to lose his life in the line of duty. Sheriff Wyckoff suffered a fatal heart attack in 1882 after he and his deputies were overpowered by a mob who then seized 3 men who had been in their custody. The mob lynched the 3 about 100 yards from where we are today, right now, what's now called City Park. Sheriff Wyckoff served as the elected sheriff of King County for 19 years. Deputy George Poor, killed in 1891. Deputy Poor was mistakenly shot and killed by a federal customs inspector. Posse man Cornelius Rowley and Deputy John Williams were 2 of 6 officers who were shot and killed in 1902 by an escapee from the Oregon State Prison. Deputy Robert Scott, killed in 1920. Deputy Scott came upon a burglary in progress. 2 suspects were robbing a motorist and then engaged in a gun battle with Deputy Scott and other deputies. Deputy Scott was shot and killed. Deputy Steve Watson, killed in 1934. Deputy Watson was on duty during labor unrest along the Seattle waterfront. He was pulled from his vehicle, beaten, disarmed, and shot with his own gun by labor activists. His murder remains unsolved to this day. Deputy Thomas Meehan, killed in 1935. Deputy Meehan was found by a farmer dead outside his patrol vehicle on Old Valley Road, about half a mile north of Kent. He had confronted a chicken thief and then was shot and killed after being struck on the head with a blunt object. Deputy Norman Silkworth, killed in 1952. Deputy Silkworth responded to the Inglewood Golf and Country Club in Kenmore. It had just been robbed. As he arrived, an employee mistook him for one of the robbers and shot him 3 times. Deputy Donald Armeni, killed in 1954. Deputy Armeni was shot and killed by a suspect he was taking into custody on a warrant. Sergeant Sam Hicks, killed in 1982. Sergeant Hicks was working on a murder investigation when he encountered the suspect who ambushed him with a high-powered rifle. As Sergeant Hicks returned fire, he was struck in the chest and fatally wounded. Detective Michael Rayburn, killed in 1984. Detective Rayburn was assigned to the civil unit and was fatally stabbed with a sword while doing an eviction. Deputy Richard Cochran II. Deputy Cochran was killed in an on-duty motorcycle accident. He was struck from behind by a transit bus and then pushed into the back of another vehicle during rush hour. Deputy Mark Brown died in 1999. Deputy Brown was involved in a motorcycle traffic accident while responding to a silent bank holdup alarm. 2 days later, he succumbed to his injuries. Deputy Richard Herzog, killed in 2002. Deputy Herzog encountered a naked, unarmed man in the city of Newcastle. This man overpowered Deputy Herzog, disarmed him, and then shot and killed him with his own service weapon. The man was taken into custody alive and is serving a life sentence. Finally, Deputy Steve Cox, killed in 2006. Deputy Cox was interviewing a man who, unbeknownst to him, was involved in a homicide earlier in the evening. That man pulled out a handgun and shot and killed Deputy Cox. Other deputies on scene engaged the man in a gun battle before the man turned the weapon on himself and committed suicide. For all of us, please remember this quote from the Fallen Officer Memorial in Washington, D.C. It's not how these officers died that made them heroes. It was how they lived. The memorial we unveil today helps us to mourn and remember those who came before us and who made the ultimate sacrifice. But it's more than that. It sends a clear message that we will continue to honor and celebrate the lives of all who willingly and voluntarily make up the thin blue line. This memorial proclaims that when one of our own is taken, though it tests us, ultimately it strengthens our resolve to continue our mission. With today's dedication, in this year of all years, where law enforcement is faced with a level of violence not seen in many, many years, collectively we honor our fallen. We honor them by remembering, we honor them by mourning, and we honor them by continuing to serve. As President John Kennedy said in 1962 when he spoke of the Washington, D.C. Memorial, as we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. What that means is because others have made the ultimate sacrifice, we should not seek recognition. Because others have fallen, we should not seek out affirmation. Because these 16 were cut down while serving and protecting, we should not seek to be honored merely for what we do. We serve because it is an honor to be a police officer, and especially a sheriff's deputy. We are honored by society because they trust us, and therefore they allow us to pin on this badge, and in return we do our best to keep them safe. It's been my privilege to be a police officer for over 40 years. It continues to be a privilege to serve with and for each and every one of you. And when the unthinkable happens again, because someday it will, we will never forget, both collectively and individually, our fallen are forever remembered. Thank you.